Hey everyone! Today we'll be changing the engine oil on a 2004 Infiniti G35X. Stay tuned. Okay, so let's go over my setup for this oil change. I have the car backed into the garage here and I have the garage door closed. So I'm going to be using a jack and jack stands instead of using ramps like I normally would. I also have the back door open to have adequate ventilation, and I'm wearing some nitrile gloves, and I'm also wearing some glasses to protect my eyes. And I'll put a link in the description below or somewhere in this video to the video that I did on jacking up the front end of the G35. Okay, so let's go over some of the materials we're going to need today to do the oil change. So I've got some Mobil 1 Advanced Full Synthetic 5W30 oil. Then I've got a genuine Nissan oil filter. Part number is 15208-65F0E. And that came with a genuine Nissan drain plug washer. The only other brand of filter that I use on some of my other cars is Wix. I'll include links in the description below to some of the tools and materials that I used during this oil change. Alright, so we're going to start off by removing the undercover, or what's commonly known as a splash shield. And that requires removing the 10mm bolts. So I always do that first, and then I remove the 3 clips. The clip in the center I always leave for last because that helps to stabilize the cover as you're trying to remove all those fasteners. Since I don't have a clip removal tool, I usually just grab a couple of flathead screwdrivers and slip them under the head of the clip at 180 degrees from each other. And I make sure I keep those screwdrivers at a flat angle, and then I pry up on the head of the clip to release the clip. Alright, so I'm back up top here, and what I'm going to do is remove the oil filler cap so the oil drains a little bit easier. So this cap was on pretty tight, and I decided to just grab a crescent wrench to make this easy and get the cap off. So all you have to do is cinch it down and then twist it. I would stay away from using a tool like vice grips on this cap. Okay, so we're back under the car here, and I've got a metal pan that I'm putting on the floor to protect the floor. And you can see I have a little bit to the left because the oil is going to drain to the left based on the plug location. Next, I place a plastic drain pan on the metal pan so I can catch the oil when it comes out. And you can see it's a little bit biased to the left because the oil is going to come shooting out to the left. So I have a 14mm ratcheting wrench, and I'm going to go ahead and loosen the drain plug. And I like to make sure that I do this very slowly and get my pan positioned. I might even elevate the pan a little bit just to make sure I catch the initial flow of oil. Now this car was very low on oil, and I'm not quite sure why. It may have an oil burning issue, which I hope is not the case. But I also noticed that there's some residue on the oil cooler, so I'm going to have to check that out. As the engine oil flow starts to slow down, I shift the drain pan slightly to the left, and then I crack the oil filter loose. After the initial rush of oil is over from loosening the oil filter, I then remove it from the oil cooler. While the oil is continuing to drain, I'm going to go ahead and replace the washer on the drain plug. So I have it over here on the bench, and normally how I do this, I grab a little pick tool and get right between the washer and the head of the bolt. Then I use the end of my fingers to spin the washer off the bolt. I'll then wipe down the bolt with a paper towel before I install the new washer. To install the new washer on the bolt, you just want to spin it onto the bolt and make sure the notch side of the washer is away from the head of the bolt. Okay, so we're installing the drain plug back on the engine oil pan. So I'll just spin it on by hand first, and then I'll grab a ratcheting wrench and cinch it down until I feel some resistance. At that point, I'll grab a torque wrench and tighten it down to 22 to 28 foot-pounds. And a reminder that this is a 14mm bolt. Next, we're going to install the oil filter, and I want to make sure that there's no gasket material left on the oil cooler from the old filter. And I also want to wipe it down a little bit. I'm also going to put a little bit of clean engine oil on the new oil filter's gasket. I'm going to spin the filter onto the cooler, and once I feel resistance, I'm going to stop, and then I'll give it 2/3 more of a turn to seat it onto the oil cooler. Okay, so let's add some oil to the engine. So I've got a funnel ready to go there. And I'm going to put in 5 quarts of oil per the service manual. If you don't change the filter, then you only need to put in 4 5/8 of a quart of oil. Lastly, I'll just install the oil filler cap, and then what we'll do is take the car outside and let it warm up to normal operating temperature. Once it's warmed up to normal operating temperature, I'm going to back the car into the garage, since the garage is a lot more level than the driveway, and we'll check the oil level. Okay, so I've got the car back in the garage here, and I've let it cool down for at least 10 minutes per the service manual. And what I've done already off camera is pull the dipstick once and wiped it off, and then I put it back into the hole. And I'm pulling it out here to check the oil level. And as you can see, it's about 2/3 up the dipstick between low and high. I'm going to go ahead and call the oil level good. I don't want to overfill it. And then I'll just check it again in about a week or so. The last couple things to do here are to check the floor to make sure there are no oil leaks. So there is one spot, and that's just because the oil cooler was not wiped off properly. And then I also reinstall the splash shield. Now I would recommend putting in that center clip first, and that'll help to stabilize the splash shield so you can install all the other fasteners.